Oh, there she is.
Oh, well. You gotta give me warning on that, starting the meeting so I can start the recording.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Clock has always been the signal.
All right, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 1.2, adopt the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I moved to adopt the agenda as posted.
And a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
And I also approve. Motion carries. 2.1, we have a student presenter from the Eureka Learning Center.
I think we actually have several.
Oh,
student presenters.
really?
Yeah, so, but I think we can see one right now.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Everyone, can you hear us all right?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Awesome, just wanted to make sure. All right, so to start out, my name is Sophia Poole, and I'm a student at the Eureka Learning Center. I'm a proud 17-year-old student. I am one of the proud students of the first generation of the Ag Floral Arranging class taught by Denise Boldway, a local florist who's graciously been teaching the first year of hopefully many at our school. I have learned many skills in this class that have made me quite confident in my floral skills. I have found my floral arranging to be a very expressive art form, and that it is also a very calming hobby of mine now. In our class, we as students have created a scarecrow for the local Huddy's Harvest Festival that came out gorgeous, as well as maintaining a bi-monthly subscription with parents and friends and family in our NUCS community, where we learn to make flowers and sell them to hold funds for our next class so we can keep up with our class's financial needs. I'm also an active member of the student leadership, having happily attended the meetings and participated in the morning greeting of our ELC students. I've also volunteered for Boo at the Zoo event in October for the student leadership group, having handed out candy to younger children within our community for 2 hours. I'm also a superintendent student oh my goodness, sorry about that, advisory council member, having found it an interesting idea and feeling very empowered to help make sure every student's voice is heard. I signed up for this program, and I'm so very excited to take part in the next meeting on December 12th, 2023. These are just a few of the positive outlooks and opportunities at the NUHCS's Eureka Learning Center that I am a happy and proud advocate for. Thank you so much for listening. It has truly been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Alrighty, do we have any questions?
Well, I just wanted to add, when she said she's going to be sitting on the, and correct me with the name of it, but the superintendent's student, what are they calling it? Student?
The Superintendent Student Advisory Council.
But that's the Humboldt County Superintendent of
Oh.
Schools. And so we have a student representative on that council.
Yep.
So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Alrighty.
All right. Thank you,
And I
Sophia.
saw her at Boo at the Zoo. I was the one who was dressed as Mary Poppins, in case you forgot.
Oh my goodness, I remember that. Oh yeah, that was such a fun event. Yeah. Alrighty, I'm gonna
Right.
pass it on to my other Eureka
Thanks.
Learning students.
Thank you, Sophia. I didn't even stay there. Oh, that's probably you. Yeah.
We are that to follow.
You guys hear Sam? Hi.
Hi, Sam.
My name is Samuel Keeley. I've been in the Northern United Charter School kind of district thingy, McBob, for about 7 years now. I had a really tough time in public schools for a while, until I finally decided to move to this charter school. I'm now in ninth grade and I'm a freshman, and I've really been appreciative of how this turned around my whole academic learning and behavioral, like, for my life. Like, so many things I would have not been able to do in public schools, and so many friends I have made. And through the opportunities I've been given, like the sports that they have given me, like basketball, track, I've been able to definitely grow in discipline through these programs, and I've been able to grow with teamwork skills, and with I've been able to stop recording me. I've been able to hang out with my friends, and it's been so good. And currently we are having a digital media class, and the teacher, great teacher, his name is Zach, and we have been Zach Lathor specifically, but we have been working with him to create posters for the school, to learn how we can eventually make money off this if we want to turn it into a job. And we've also been able to learn how to edit software, create websites, all the whole shebang. And I'm really glad for all these opportunities I've been given over time throughout this school. And like, I'm not on it this year, but the student council, it was called, last year I was on, and I was able to keep a schedule of helping out around the school. I've been presented with opportunities to help teach other students, and the one-on-one learning is probably my favorite part, getting to work one-on-one, especially with our great teachers we have here. And the really good part of it this year is the statewide, I don't know the exact name, statewide student advisory board for community schools, I think it is. I've been presented with the opportunity to work with the people there. It has grown my meeting skills, my professionalism. I've been able to keep a schedule for that too, and talk to people, sign documents, stuff that I haven't really been able to experience before. And it's really shown me how to work an actual job for the most part. And we've been able to discuss the student voice and various issues inside the school, and even work together as a group in our own school system to set up, what was it? It was a information board for all the things we needed to know. And I just really appreciated being able to be a part of that and be able to learn with them and to be professional. And I'm really thankful for all the years I've been at the school, and for our great principal too. Anyway, yeah, thank you for letting me present here too. That's another great opportunity. Any questions?
Thank you,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Thank you.
Sam, is it, you're on the Community Engagement Initiative group, right? You're gonna be traveling to San Francisco
Yep, I'll be there. Yeah.
as part of that. So you guys remember that we received an additional grant after we got the community school grant, then we got something called the CEI grant, Community Engagement Initiative. And a committee had to be formed of that, of like parents and students and staff members. And so Sam is one of the students on it. And that involves going to 8 different trainings. Most of them are virtual, but 3 of them are out of the area. So our first one is in San Francisco, and then also Santa Clara and Ontario, Southern California. So he'll be traveling with us to all of those places for those workshops.
Oh.
Yeah, that's very nice.
What a
Can't wait to
wonderful
meet anyone who's
And
there.
stipend too.
Any
Is
other
that all?
questions or
Very
comments
cool.
for Sam?
Thanks, Sam.
I have one.
Okay,
Remember who my is.
wait,
Did you hear that?
Rosemary?
Remember who my favorite is.
Oh, I remember.
Very, very good, sweetie. You did a good job, hon.
I know I'm the favorite. Thank you.
Pass that on to James.
I will.
No, he's my
So
grandson.
this is you
Best
guys.
friend. That's what he's always saying. I'm the favorite.
No, these are the people that you're talking to. All right. Do you want to present together or separate? Okay. That's good. Okay, so talk and then see if they can hear you. Okay, this is a professional
Okay.
meeting. Let's get started.
Can you hear us?
We can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jamie Rooms. I'm a senior at ELC. This is my last year. So I took this opportunity to talk to you people to like get more experience in public speaking because I'm really bad at public speaking.
My name is Alexandria Porter, but I go by Allie. I'm a junior at the ALC, and I took this opportunity to get better with public speaking because it makes me really nervous.
And I'm gonna be talking about Avid today, and she's gonna be talking about leadership, which we're both in. Avid is I guess like a program to practice collegey thingies. I've been in it for 2 years now, and Sarah Schaefer is the teacher. We've done plenty of projects, but like the two main projects is the basket project, where we had Brenda come every like Thursday, and we would just like read this book, and then we would make a basket and learn about that history about Native Americans, and it was pretty fun. And the other fundraising we do is for our Avid trips and our end of the school year trips, which we do like candygrams, bake sales, and all that stuff. And I participate in everything, especially the whole Avid class participates. But I love participating more than everybody else. So like I bring the most stuff and everything. And last year we went to San Francisco to visit some colleges. The best college there was Sonoma State, which I think I'm gonna go to as my second college. And we also did some fun activities like going to the A's game, just like have a little fun on our school trip, which was pretty cool. We got to like travel through this city, whatever. And it was pretty cool. Like we saw like 6 different colleges, but my favorite was Sonoma. And on to her.
So leadership, we just started this year, but it's been a good opportunity to be able to be in leadership because what we basically do is there's different things. We greet people at the door, like we have different jobs to do. There's greeting people at the door, like in the mornings. There's helping out all the teachers and stuff. You participate in the bake sales as well and stuff like that. And we also fundraise money for the end of the school trips too. It's really nice to be able to do that because you get skills that you don't really necessarily have to begin with. Are there any questions?
Doesn't look like
It
it.
doesn't look like it, no.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
You're
thank you very
welcome.
much.
You're welcome.
And good luck in what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Now, I do have a question. Was anybody there in the culinary class? Like, are any of you guys in culinary?
I was in
No.
culinary last
She was.
year.
Last
I
year.
was.
Want to talk about it?
Do you have a question, Sherry?
No, I was just gonna say that yesterday and today, the culinary class there as a fundraiser, was doing a meal
Mhm.
to purchase. And so I currently on my desk have lasagna and salad and bread for dinner tonight. So I was gonna thank you if any of you were in culinary.
Actually, the leadership people like packed it
Yeah,
and gave out all them like
the
gave them
maps.
it and took the money and counted the money. That's what our jobs. And Sam that talked earlier, he was a greeter to point the people where to go. So it was really fun. Like I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for doing it. I look forward to it tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for your support.
You're welcome.
All right.
Rebecca, Are there any more presenters?
That is all.
Will you send Linda a list of the students, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You know,
Oh,
step out and out of their comfort zone and
Mhm.
do things.
Do you want me to try to turning on one?
Try.
Sure.
Maybe?
Otherwise, I need to change the setting on it to
Otherwise,
dark. This is
Nope,
gonna
it's-
kill me.
All or none.
Whatever.
This one's an outside.
There we go.
We
Okay.
can get the electrician in here and switch that.
Switch that.
Each bank is.
I mean, those are even out.
Uh-huh. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have 3.1, consideration of approval of warrants and payroll for Northern United Charter, Humboldt. 3.2, consideration of approval of warrants and payroll for Northern United Siskiyou, batch number 1010, 1019, and 1024. We have 3.3, consideration of approval of minutes for the October 11th meeting. And 3.4, consideration of resignations, hires, leaves, and change of assignments. Are there any questions,
Nope,
comments?
nope.
Is there a motion?
I move to accept the consent agenda as posted.
Yay, Melissa.
Moving right along.
Vernacular, numerically correct.
Oh, you've made his day. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Amy?
Aye.
Jerry?
I,
Melissa?
Aye.
And I also approve. Motion carries.
sorry for that, I couldn't resist.
You were excited. That's okay. Moving on to public comments, 4.1. Comments by the public. Under this item, the public is invited to address the board regarding items that are not on today's agenda. Please keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes. The board is not allowed to take action under the law. Oh, excuse me, I got ahead of myself. The board is not allowed under the law to take action on matters that are not on the agenda. Should comments from the public pertain to a charge or complaint against an employee of Northern United Humboldt Charter School or Northern United Siskiyou Charter School, the board encourages the speaker to utilize the school's written complaint procedures to pursue the matter. The public will have an opportunity to comment on all agenda items as those items are heard. Do we have any public comments? Okay, hearing none. Moving on to action items to be considered. 5.1, approval of the food service agreement between Fire Monkeys and Northern United Siskiyou.
All right, so this is actually our first vending agreement for Siskiyou. We've been vending over on the Humboldt side for a while, but this is our first one for Siskiyou. We have a new food service coordinator this year. And so she was the one that was able to kind of beat the bushes and find somebody to vend with us for over there. And they're doing both Wairika and Mount Shasta. And if in case you're unaware, which I was, and I would guess that all of us are because this is over on Siskiyou side, but Fire Monkey is the organization that provides the meals for the firefighters when they are stationed, when there's fires.
Yeah.
And so, and so it kind of like made sense timing wise too, because like for the most part, the school year is not like the busy, I mean, the fall, there is some overlap, but, anyway, our food service coordinator was able to work with the, owner of Fire Monkey to meet the requirements necessary for for a national school lunch program and school breakfast program. So, and then, ran it all through the health department over there and everything and got approval for it. So very excited.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. What
Mhm.
a win-win.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's prepackaged, prepackaged in that she's preparing it all in her commercial kitchen,
Right.
but then individually packaging it in like sacks, and then they live there in the refrigerator. They're all labeled as to what day, like these are the Monday ones, these are the Tuesdays, so that by the end of the week, we're sure that they've gotten all the nutritional things that they need to have in a week. And yeah, it is working out great. And because she individually packs it like that, it means that it meets our requirements for our health department permit, meaning, we can serve, but we can't do any preparing. So there's no like dishes to wash on our end or anything like that.
Mhm.
So anyway, I'm asking for approval for this.
Are there any questions or comments? I have one.
Okay.
If they are bagged lunches for the week, then they are all cold lunches.
They are. Mm-hmm. All cold. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the food service agreement between Fire Monkey and Northern United Skew Charter School.
And a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Did you say it? Oh, there we go.
Aye.
And I also, there we go, okay. It's been moved and seconded and voted, the motion carries. Moving on to 5.2 is the approval of the pay schedule policy revisions.
Okay, so I don't remember when this was, but at some point Linda and I were looking at this policy and realized that, you guys remember, it's been like a couple years now, I think, that we added education stipends for classified staff onto our pay schedule. It was always there for certificated, but not classified. And so at some point, Linda and I noticed in the policy that wasn't mentioned, like we didn't update the policy at that time. We have so the certificated stipends were mentioned in this pay schedule policy, but not the classified one. So that is the only change in here. I gave you the current one without it, and then the updated one with it, so that you could see, the difference. But that's the only change on there. So I'm just asking for approval on that.
Are there any questions or comments for Sherry?
Not other than a good catch.
Yeah. I don't know why we didn't find it before, but it's just one of those things,
Because that's been maybe 3 years.
This might be the third year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question about the policy, not just
Not just that addition, that
Right.
addition to something else.
I noticed that it says here that certificated employees could be placed as high as step 5, or given 5 years of credit or wherever or whatever. Classified, it says they all start at step 1. So somebody coming to the district with 5 years teaching experience benefits, they get credit for that, but a classified person does not.
I still haven't found where that is, but I found it.
Oh, okay.
What I was gonna say is, there is the statement that says exceptions to the placement of the employee on the pay schedule is
Right.
on a case-by-case basis. And honestly, that's what happens every time. Whether it's certificated or classified, we have like, just this year, we put classified staff, new hires that we got, not on step one, because it was somebody with experience.
Right,
So
right.
that's really what we look at.
Okay, okay.
And it's interesting because we've had this conversation about, often in a traditional district
Mhm.
where there's a bargaining unit, that is actually something that's bargained, the number of years that's given. It's usually in the collective bargaining agreement. And I think we have 5 in there because that's what originally Matol had.
Right.
But I think everybody is getting away from that now. Because there is such a shortage in staff. Like, I know for sure we've had this, the superintendents have had this discussion in Siskiyou County. No one does that now. Everybody awards full years now because you can't get somebody. You can't compete, because there's such a shortage.
Exactly.
We've had a conversation about that.
And my concern seeing that is I would hate to have somebody interested, but yet discouraged
Mhm.
because they don't want to
Mhm.
take a pay cut.
Right. And that is exactly where it goes with that case by case. What happens is somebody will say, I need this pay,
Right,
or this
right.
is what I was making, I can't make, that's kind of always what it has been, is a kind of a negotiation case by case.
And is that something that is stated on the application for both the certificated and the classified?
It's not on the applications, we use, like on the Humboldt side, we use HCO, we use certificated and classified applications.
Okay.
And then on the Siskiyou side, we use Edjoy. And so it's not on the applications at all, but on the postings, what we always do is put like whatever the range is for that pay.
Yeah.
So like, let's say we're posting for an instructional aid, we'll put like what the range is, or
Yes.
a teacher or whatever, we
Perfect.
just always put the
Perfect.
range.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't used to do that, but I think that's what we have moved to as it's harder and harder to find people.
Right. Okay. That was just my,
But it's something we
Question.
can consider changing. I mean, that's exactly what, these policies are.
and,
like, for-
you've explained it, and if it's there and the postings say between 100 and 300 and it covers everything then.
Yeah.
Yeah. My concern, like I said, is I just would hate to have somebody be discouraged.
Yeah, I think if we took out that 5 years or step one or whatever, I think that we would just leave in that it's like decided by on a case by case basis or something, because that gives us flexibility.
Yeah.
Because often it'll be somebody, it depends on the position. If it is an entry level kind of minimum wage position and it's someone with 0 experience, one makes sense.
That's right.
So it just, anyway, it varies from person to person.
Good. Any other comments or questions?
Usually I have to, it depends on experience, I'll put the
On the posting also.
depends.
Yeah, so it sounds like everything is covered. Yeah. Okay. Hearing no other comments or questions, is there a motion?
I move to approve the pay schedule policy revisions.
And a second?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
And I also agree. Motion carries. 5.3, approval of the mileage reimbursement policy revisions.
Okay, so this one, in October, I mentioned that we were looking at changing this because it didn't currently give like a mileage requirement for turning in a mileage reimbursement. And actually, like what we were seeing is people were turning in mileage reimbursements for very short distances from here to HCOE, for example. And so we said, well, let's look at the policy. What does the policy say? And we pulled it out, and there was no minimum miles traveled or anything on there. And you may remember last month I asked you guys, do you remember what we had put in the board one? And I think we thought that it was in the board handbook. It is not in the bylaws or something. It is not. We actually made and I think I included it in here. We did a resolution. We did a board resolution. And so that's not really in anything. other than the packet from that month's
Mhm.
board meeting. So, and I pulled that out and there's no mileage. Did I put that in the packet?
No,
I intended to. It's in a folder in my office.
Because we had a link.
I know,
Discussion.
there's no mileage cap in there. There's no like 10 miles, like I was hoping there would be.
Yes.
Because that's what I wanted to base this on, but there's not.
what we used, thinking, trying to reconstruct the discussion, at that time, considering all the board members, who they were and where they lived and the distance to a center for a meeting. I think by default, mine became the default of
And I was the only one
approximately 25
that
miles.
didn't qualify, so to speak. You did, and our folks over there in
That's
Siskiyou
how
did.
I remembered it too, but when I got out that resolution, yeah, but when I got out that resolution, it was.
I think it was after Jennifer left. Yeah.
But anyway, so I didn't have that to base it on. And so we chose 10. And the rationale for that was 10 miles covers the distance between like every one of our centers, like in Siskiyou, between Mount Shasta and Wairika, that would absolutely be covered. And then, it doesn't cover the distance for here to Eureka Learning Center. It doesn't cover the difference between here to HCOE, but it covers going to Willow Creek, going to Bryceland, it covers all of the outlying areas, right? And so that's why we chose 10 to try to make sure that people who did have to travel between centers like that, that it was covered in a reasonable way. But this is really, this is open to conversation here, because it really was like the conversation we had and we settled on 10, but yeah.
By chance, did you inquire if other districts have a minimum?
I did not. Does HCOE, Kelly?
HOE doesn't do mileage because they have fleet vehicles.
Okay.
So if you travel with HOE in your personal vehicle, they only cover one-way mileage. You're required to take a fleet vehicle for most travel unless it's unavailable.
Otherwise, you use a county car.
And then keeping in mind, most districts wouldn't have this issue. They're not spread out over a county.
That's
We
Right.
have our staff, a lot of our staff is itinerant.
right.
And so the mileage reimbursement isn't as big of an issue for other places as for us. And so
The other charter schools?
we're the only one that's countywide.
No, oh, yeah, yeah. you're right,
And I
right.
know with Eureka, when I was there, anytime you were asked to take your own vehicle, you were also told, make sure and keep track of your mileage.
Yeah. Yeah, we've always done mileage reimbursement and people should be reimbursed miles.
Right.
But we felt like maybe there should be a minimum. I don't know, I don't know.
I can say I'm comfortable with the 10 miles. And I say that because if it ever comes up again and somebody questions it, we're the board, it's easy for us to make it 15 or maybe only.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So 10 is good. Good for
There you go.
Yeah.
good brainstorm.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't want to exclude people who legitimately should get mileage reimbursement, but we did kind of want to eliminate the ones that really are turning it in for 1 mile. I mean, that takes staff time and resources and,
That's more to process
Oh, yeah.
the payment.
Plus, we do have school vans, and that is always an option for people too.
Okay.
Well, they're pretty busy this year.
They are very busy this year. In fact, we've been talking about buying a school car because of it.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's exciting though.
yeah. We're gonna put that into our community school implementation grant.
And then maybe another van.
Maybe another van as well. On the Humboldt side, the vans are in constant use.
How about on the Siskiyou side? though?
Not as much, but the issue with the Humboldt side is we have so many high school classes off-site. You know, like our hydroponics class is off-site, our building trades class is off-site. Eureka students go to the Arcata ceramics lab. You know, people are going, we're having to like commute kids in a lot of different locations. In addition to like staff needing the vans for things. Every Friday we have org, those go, and then there's field trips, you know, so there's a lot of van use.
Good, good. Are there any questions or comments?
I do have, I actually really appreciate this because like you were saying, I couldn't find this information anywhere exactly. And so I'm like, oh, here it is. So I was wondering, I guess.
Do you mean, Melissa, you couldn't find the board member reimbursement stuff?
Yeah, I think I didn't know quite where to look or, you know, I just was like, what do I do? Who do I talk to? What are the rules? Like, I thought, because I haven't turned in mileage myself, just because I'm kind of a procrastinator like that. I thought, oh, maybe we do it all at once, one time in the year, you know, or I just didn't really know. Is there a cutoff time? Who do I ask for the paperwork so that I can request, you know? So this is nice knowing, right, that it's monthly. It needs to be turned in every board meeting for myself, right?
For employees. And that's, you know, the reason you couldn't find the one for the board is because it wasn't in a place that would be findable for you.
Okay.
And so we do have a board resolution, and I wish I really intended to put it in the packet. I don't know how I missed doing that. But anyway, I came across it, and that's what I was surprised it was a resolution, and I think we need to add it to our handbook.
I think so.
Because for this exact reason that you point out, Melissa, if a board member is looking for this information, you wouldn't be able to find it unless you knew what month and year we voted on it and went to that place in that packet on the website, because it was a board resolution. So
Well, that's,
it's not.
no, it's not.
Oh. It
Well,
could be. I think
it's
the handbook is
not necessarily, but in the handbook, and you know, if you recall going back last month, let's see, this is November, October, or maybe possibly even September. I had an epiphany thinking, oh, one of the other things that's missing is the reimbursement.
Right.
And so Melissa's absolutely right.
yeah.
And then piggybacking on that, sure, that's why it needs to be in the handbook, and it's a thing that's part of the onboarding orientation, and so that everybody understands it's there if you want to take advantage of it. And where to find the form, and yes, it needs to be turned in monthly basis, and so on and so forth. So. And
I just pulled it up on my computer.
I mean, in the beginning, soon after that, I used to, of course, that's when I was the chairperson, and I made more trips here than for just the board meeting.
Yeah.
But,
And isn't that form on the website under forms?
Not anymore.
yeah,
It's no longer on the website. Now all the forms are in a shared Google Drive that's called #1 NUCS staff resources.
And like,
number
for
one is there 'cause it
instance,
comes up first.
for instance, I was trying to access it and I don't have staff access, right? So Kirk went in and found the form for me and sent it to me, but yeah, so it would be nice to have like a one for us. I did have one other question about this. It was mentioning original receipts must be included when available, and then it gives some examples. And so I was wondering, that must not be including a receipt for your gas, right? Correct? Or that would easily be stated there. But I'm wondering if that should be stated, like excluding your gas, like, you know, because that does sound like you need to bring in like a receipt for your gas price.
No, when employees turn in, when they get mileage reimbursement, it's not based on how much they pay, it's the IRS rate. And so that's why we don't need a gas receipt,
Okay.
Yeah.
because we're not reimbursing them what they paid for gas, we're reimbursing them in the mileage based on the IRS mileage rate.
And I believe
Okay.
the.
So I was assuming that, but I was kind of wondering, like, does that almost need to be stated? Because it does say that we need receipts. Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like we need them. Wait, we don't? Because it doesn't say that. You know.
Well, it does say original receipts must be included when available, e.g. tolls,
Yeah.
parking fees, etc. So,
That's what I'm saying. It's like left unspoken that it doesn't need, but it doesn't say that. Yeah, so that's why I'm like
Yeah,
just
I
mentioning
guess-
that.
yeah, we certainly could.
The vans.
Yeah.
when Someone gets gas.
Because that's the gas card, it's not a
Right.
reimbursement, not mileage reimbursement.
So I asked for the receipts when they fill up the
Yeah.
vans.
Yeah,
Hello.
we could certainly add that. And just so you guys know too, board members, I just emailed you the link to that resolution so that you would all at least have it right now. Which we did it in April 2019, in case anybody's
Oh
wondering.
gosh.
But yeah, there was no mileage, like miles on it. It's just accommodations due to board related travel, parking fees due to board related travel, mileage due to board related travel, including board meetings, registration fees, reimbursements of meals of board related trainings, conferences and meetings deemed as work study board sessions. Reimbursements may not exceed $30 a day and may not include alcohol nor tips. So no mileage. We all remembered a mile number, but it's not in there.
Yeah.
I just looked at the mileage form and it doesn't say anything about receipts on the mileage form. And the mileage form can be turned in by itself. It doesn't need
Right.
a reimbursement
Correct.
form.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no receipts necessary.
But we could state that, because you're right, Melissa, it isn't explicitly said, and maybe a staff member would be confused by that, I don't know.
Or
And,
excited that you're gonna reimburse them for a tank of gas.
Yeah.
I think just sometimes just like maybe it seems like too much, but it's just helpful like to just really know what's expected.
Yeah, true, and we shouldn't assume that that it's obvious or something.
Right.
Yeah, so
And-
where would we put that? Maybe just a whole nother bullet, receipts for gas are not needed.
By your board handbook right now?
I think
Well,
we're talking
you
about
could-
this mileage reambrsement policy
I mean,
revision.
Right here where it's
How
the,
about just tweaking original receipts
Oh.
must be included when available?
For this.
And then just right
and
after
then-
that,
and then,
excluding
uh,
gas.
excluding gas. Are you
um,
making notes?
e.g. and take out the
I'm
etc.
trying to think of
Uh-huh.
how to word it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because weren't you guys saying that sometimes with the vans, you
That's
do need
tolls and
to
parking
have the
fees.
gas?
But that's not for mileage reimbursement, and this policy is mileage reimbursement
but
policy.
excluding.
When available,
gas.
not including gas receipts.
Yeah, yeah, excluding.
And like
gas
you
receipts.
get paragraph that says if a personal vehicle is being used, the mileage form has to be turned in with a map or a gas receipt.
No, well, we don't want to require gas receipts.
Oh, that's what mileage pays for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, normally you get more than just gas.
Exactly, it's like wear and tear on your car.
Yeah,
Being,
655.
right, being reimbursed the IRS rate is better than just getting your gas.
And like we've said so often along the way, talking about it, we all know and assume,
Yeah.
but we're not all gonna be in the same room.
Right.
Well, how about at the end of that first paragraph where it says the per mile reimbursement amount will be the standard mileage rate as determined by the Internal Revenue Service, therefore a gas receipt is not necessary. Or something like that, does not need to be submitted. Or
Perfect, because it's right there.
Submitted.
Mhm.
It's not need to be submitted. It's not required to be submitted, something like that.
Something, yeah,
Okay,
but right
Except
there.
for if you're using a school vehicle.
but then that's not a mileage reimbursement.
Yeah,
That has
you
nothing
wouldn't
to do-
need.
This policy is mileage
Yeah.
reimbursement.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause that's just, we need it because like we have a gas card.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, so if we adopt it with that edit,
That's first
also,
paragraph.
the end of the first paragraph.
not only for this, but the next two, should we change the date to today's date rather
yeah.
than
Yeah, good.
last
Yeah.
week's date?
Yep, you're right. Of when they're adopted.
Uh-huh.
Mhm, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I do that one.
yeah, cause that's not,
Or-
that's not really the title, like we wouldn't have the word revision and have the date up there.
Are you gonna
They'll
just put
be
it
the
down
adopted
underneath?
dates
Oh,
where it
perfect,
is, yeah.
okay. But it should reflect
Today's
today
date,
rather
yeah.
than last week.
Good point. Perfect, Linda's on it.
Any other questions or comments? All right, is there a motion?
I move to approve the mileage reimbursement policy revisions with the discussed revisions. With
That's
the,
good.
excuse me,
That's good.
with the discussed edits.
Perfect. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Jerry?
I
Melissa?
Aye.
And I also approve.
Who seconded that?
Amy.
Okay, thank you.
Motion carries. Moving on to 5.4, approval of the driver criteria and eligibility policy revisions.
Okay, so this is another one that I encourage your feedback on. This, you see that we've had this driver criteria and eligibility policy, and at some point, we realized that there was not an age limit. You know how often to drive, I don't know, for like insurance coverage purposes or whatever, like when you get a rental car, there's a minimum age, you know, like an
Mhm.
18-year-old can't rent a car, you'll be 25 or whatever it is. So we noticed that our policy didn't have that because Harbor Safe, our insurance company, regardless of who drives our van, you know, they would be covered. But they recommend 24 as the minimum age, and we didn't have that in here. And so we put that in here, 24, since that's what they recommend, but we have mixed feelings about it because we have a couple staff members younger than that. And so if that's the case, they would not be able to drive the van. But, and so then on one hand, you might think, well, it's kind of a no-brainer, you know, all staff members should, regardless of their age. But, you know, there is also the issue of, you know, you just, everything is a risk, right? You kind of, you're trying to limit your risk or anything. And, you know, thinking about like a newspaper headline that said a van crashed and whatever happened and the driver was an 18-year-old, how would that look? You know, even if it is legal, even if it is allowable by our policy, is that something that we would, how, you know, how would that come across? So,
And are we always going to have the same insurance carrier?
probably. That would be my guess.
Is this only, are you talking about the age only for employees or also for volunteers or all across the board? both or either or?
Drivers.
Yeah, this is just for driving our vans, and you have to be an employee for that.
Right, but I know on this rubric, it has volunteers driving with students also. so
Right,
they're
yeah, this,
talking about-
you're right about this, this is everybody, because that even says like, students can't drive students, and
Right.
that kind of stuff. But this particular sentence says will be allowed to drive school vehicles. It's the very first sentence in there, only approved employees of voting nine charter schools that are over the age of 24 will be allowed to drive school vehicles. So that's specifically what the age part is talking about.
Personally, as a parent of a second grader that has a very young teacher, I would absolutely 100% be okay with that teacher driving her on a field trip with a bunch of our kids in a van. But that's because I know that person, teacher, yeah. And so, and also know they have experience doing that already, like that was part of their
Yeah.
resume coming
Right.
in, so.
And how about if it was, you know,
I think
an
in,
aide or, somebody who's running a club for us or something that's 18 and taking the kids,
yeah,
I don't know. It's one of those things to think about. An 18-year-old does not have a lot of experience behind the wheel. Are we comfortable with them driving?
yeah. Well, I
Our
think my
students, and that's
concern
kind of what I'm
isn't
thinking.
necessarily any vehicle, it's the vans, because they're
Mhm.
giant.
Mhm.
Like, I'm thinking anybody that has never driven one
Mhm.
should probably at least take it around the block a few times before they. I mean, honestly, like that's intimidating. Like
Yeah.
if you have somebody who's only driven a little Prius their whole life, and then you're gonna ask them to take 12 kids in a giant van, down to Fortuna, like, and they've never,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that's a
know.
whole nother,
Yeah, that's a whole other thing, right?
But-
Yeah.
and regardless of age, so.
And it's not just
And then are
the
you gonna go
one
the other
teacher,
way?
there's other staff members too
Right.
that are under 24 in both schools.
Well, also the other way, do you cap the age?
Yeah.
I mean, if we
Yeah.
wanna talk about age.
Yeah, that's not
Is,
recommended.
yeah.
Well, yeah, that's not, they don't give, our insurance doesn't give a recommendation for the upper end. As long as they're a licensed driver.
I would add, if you wanted to keep this, I would add per our insurance recommendation. Because this is not necessarily, I'm just thinking liability wise, discrimination wise, I wouldn't put anything in there that says something specifically about an age without a caveat of this is recommended by our insurance. Like this isn't just something we pulled out of our, because that's why it's on there, right?
That's definitely what alerted us to the fact that we didn't have an age on our policy.
Right.
I know it's a tough one. That's why I'm
So-
bringing it to you.
Yeah, so. I think anybody who is employed by NUCS should be allowed to, as long as they have a valid driver's license.
And a clean driving record.
Yeah,
which we
because
also
it,
require.
I mean, that's all part of being an employee, having all that. No matter what the age, because in a way, then you're discriminating against the 18-year-old who is a valid employee of the district, met all of our requirements. And then you're gonna say, well, you can't drive students because you don't meet this other criteria. And I'd be worried that some really sharp person could bring a suit against the district for age discrimination. So I just take that out. Now,
Well, currently it's not in there.
okay,
So,
I
I mean,
mean,
we could
just leave it.
yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at the sentence and that's when I say take that out. Aides, somebody that runs a club or that they're not a valid paid employee of the district. So I mean, that's a caveat, you know, a paid
Well,
employee.
well, they would be, aides are paid
Aides are-
employees,
Well,
and so are club,
I-
so are people that do the clubs.
Okay, are they, all right, so,
Yeah, there are employees.
as opposed, okay, I guess my point.
I was just bringing
As
that up before
opposed, as
because,
opposed to, parent volunteers.
Well, and you already have the
Yeah.
students can't drive students.
yeah, and
so-
parent volunteers can't drive our school vans.
Right.
They can, but they can, you know.
But I
drive
mean,
kids
and personal cars, yeah,
They can drive
you know,
cars, yeah.
you were saying on, some field trips. That, you know,
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
Students are
I,
transported.
Melissa wants to say something. Melissa?
So, I'm like pretty relaxed parent and I kind of am like, oh, you know, I'll leave it to someone else to make the decision. But, so I have kind of a few points to make on the discrimination thing. We've had to ask like our lawyers about discrimination and it's pretty specific. So I don't necessarily think that that would probably fall under discrimination. It's not their job to drive. So I don't think that like we'd necessarily be discriminating by not allowing someone to drive. But I do think that like insurance companies and all of that, they do a lot of, what is that called? Like
Risk
statistics.
analysis.
And a lot of studies that show people under a certain age, especially males, like it goes on and on. It's very discriminatory in a way, you know, but there's a lot of data that says that people who haven't been driving for this long or who have this lesser cognitive growth, whatever, are not as safe of drivers. And so I think that going by our insurance recommendation is a good idea. I feel like it would probably be pretty inconvenient at times, but I mean, a lot of things are, and safety is our priority. I also feel like people who are driving these big vehicles on windy roads probably should have a training. Like we should probably get them in there with somebody certified prior to driving kids at all, you know? So those are just my thoughts. Yeah. And Kirk was also had another suggestion that was kind of cool.
Well, I don't know, I just thought, 21, I feel like that's where we've been drawing the line, if not formally, at least informally, somebody needs to be 21. Like we have somebody who works for us in Wairika who's 20. And we've been saying, sorry, you know, if you're with us next year, you can drive the vans, but. You know, I wasn't exactly sure even where that came from. And another issue that kind of came up, in terms of being allowed to drive school vans is whether or not a person has a valid California driver's license. You know, I think the insurance company would cover regardless of what state somebody was licensed in. You know, and I assume that Oregon has the ability to provide a motor vehicle report, you know, or a DMV report for somebody who's licensed in that state. So I'm not 100% sure why we have that requirement, but by the same token, I'm comfortable with, you know, that's our policy and you need to have a California license, you know, we're a California school, California DMV, all that, you know, so I don't know, that was just another thing that that kind of came up recently for us in Wairika is somebody not having a California license.
And I already reached out to the insurance company on that one.
Yeah, I called them on the driver's license thing, and the person I spoke with at Charter Safe said we would cover you regardless.
Yeah. Well,
But
they would cover us regardless of the 24 thing too.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it's a licensed driver, they would cover us because we're paying for them to cover us.
Well, and
But that's a separate
for the
issue.
first 4 years, I know I was a driver as a volunteer. I had a Louisiana driver.
Yeah, I don't think, I believe it's something that we could comfortably, require, to have, the California driver's license, but going back, my counselor consultant would disagree with 24 being the age to cognitively reach. She's always told me and makes statements all the time, it's 25. Men, especially 25, don't reach that full cognitive state. So that could be argued.
Sometimes
So I
not
would
even
say,
at 25.
Hmm?
Sometimes not even at 25.
I know, but
Yeah.
as a benchmark
Well,
in
we're
the
using the benchmark of the.
psychologically.
Yeah.
I resemble that remark.
Recommendation.
Yeah.
It's purely a risk thing, and like how much risk are we? Because I think we can all agree that saying 24, requiring 24 is less risky than no age requirement. And so it's just a matter of, are we willing, how likely do we feel like something could happen, and would it come back to bite us
And,
or
you
whatever?
know, I'm piggybacking on what Melissa and Amy said about the big vans and the windy roads.
Only saying that because I've driven one, like they're
Yeah,
not that one, but the air.
I went out to Matole over the Wildcat and I thought, oh my gosh, white knuckles here. And I'm a little bit beyond the 24, but that would be a concern, is having them go on a field trip or wherever they're headed, and run into the road conditions and not having that type of driving experience.
Well, I would like to think that there would be a discussion. I mean, let's not throw common sense out the window. That a vehicle that you're unfamiliar with, and going in a particular to a particular destination that you're not familiar with, maybe they should reconsider being the driver of that and let somebody with more experience. But I'm still not in favor of assigning an age, because if I were that young teacher and I felt that I'm a pretty good driver, and then I want to take my students somewhere on a trip, and you're telling me, no, you can't because you're not 24.
Well,
I'd be,
I think
We've
the
always
hard
said 21. We've always said 21 over in Siskiyou County.
I don't know why, because that wasn't in our policy, yeah.
or
But
whatever
that's
age,
not
you
real,
know,
yeah.
people assign.
So-
And,
Yeah.
we wouldn't, we could never have anticipated having this conversation. Except that you just hired,
No, we have other employees, young employees.
okay, but,
And before this one was.
okay, well,
Yeah. Who
So-
wanted to drive last year, like there was this conversation last year with somebody else.
Well, I think the
I
other
feel
thing.
like-
Sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
I guess you're good.
Sorry, I feel like someone who's only been driving for 2 years, probably mostly just driving themselves, I wouldn't feel very comfortable, no matter how good of a driver like they felt they were, driving like 7 or 8 year olds. Like, I don't know how comfortable I'd feel with that. So like 36 and only driving for 2 years, like that's not very comfortable to me either. So I don't really know how. I think that the age specific time, I think you're right. Like, it doesn't really necessarily fulfill maybe our goal of safety, but I think at least it gets us a little closer to like, well, we know they've been driving for this many years, potentially at least, like they have at least, 5 years of driving experience before they're driving people's children.
Okay, Melissa, you just hit on a very valid point. Instead of looking at this from, the way this is presented here, you have an age of 24. You can debate 21, 25. What if we incorporated saying you must have 5 years of driving experience?
I don't know how we would validate
The
that.
DMV.
Does it say how long you've had, I mean, it would say how long you've had a
It was
California.
first issued.
Well, yeah, and it was
But
first
what if
issued.
what if you just moved here last year, so it was issued 1 year ago, but you were driving for
Well, you
20
can-
years in another state?
Yeah, you can call
There's
the
no
DMV.
verification. We're not gonna call on the DMV for,
No, I mean,
everybody
I just-
wants to.
What if we just ask them, like,
I'm just saying
what
that
if
that's
it's
a
kind of
possible
casual?
I just don't know how we would verify
Work
that.
around. No.
What if we
I
just
think
have to verify with the driver, like, how many years have you been driving, you know?
Yeah.
Would that be good enough? for
I mean,
us?
heck, somebody could argue that an 18-year-old has had driver's education more recently than anybody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? But-
Any argument, you can make any argument, but the insurance company's recommendation is based on statistics. And, driver safety and, definitely 16 to 24 has more accidents than above 24. And that's the reason why the insurance gives that recommendation. But we could leave the policy as it is and keep thinking about it and not make any change at this point, and maybe never make a change. But I definitely wanted to bring it to your guys' attention, since it is not the way it is now, is not what our insurance company recommends.
So can I ask a few question? Has there ever been an issue with a young driver?
In our school,
What do you mean issue?
you mean like a wreck? We've had
Or kids complaining, parents complaining.
tickets.
We've never had a young driver.
Okay,
I mean, if we're, we've not let anybody,
Our
young.
vans are pretty new even, right?
Yeah.
And you haven't even had.
Yeah, we've had the vans like 4 years.
Doesn't it?
And we've never had anybody under the age of 30, just because that's how it worked out in Wairika, drive any of our vans.
On this side, we have definitely not in our school vans, but in people's personal cars, people have gotten in wrecks on the job when they were driving places. But I can't think of anything,
Well, I think
anything
the
related
other
to.
thing is, at least from what I've experienced here at Fenton Learning Center, we have very responsible teachers, in the sense that I've put my children, and I know other parents have put their children in their teachers' cars to
Yeah.
go to a field trip, because
Yeah.
logistically, if you don't have enough teachers to drive the van, if you don't have enough employees to drive the van and take the whole school to the pumpkin patch,
Right.
you have to put them in
Mhm.
their own cars.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, every teacher, and I know at this point, all of them very well here, they strategically do that with parents, kids who those parents would approve of that
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah.
And whereas other parents would be like, put them in a school van, here's
Yeah.
your seat.
Yeah.
I think strategically, everything is done very well, and I'm sure you guys do the same thing, like strategically, you try to do what's best for the students and what's best for the parents in the minute.
Yeah.
I think, other than, I don't really love the age thing, but I think that everyone at least should have some sort of drive time with an experienced. I mean, even if Rebecca got in the car with them for 30 minutes to drive around in the giant vans, I mean, I don't have a problem with smaller cars, but if they've never driven that big van, I think that's my only.
yeah, and I mean, I agree, absolutely. I mean, that's especially the dynamics of our centers and teachers, and the size and the relationship between parents and the teachers, and all of that. Yeah, that's that's how they roll. That's how they would work that out. If we were a larger district, school buses and, you know, all, you know, you lose that closeness. That's a different story. So,
So Rosemary, it is an action item, so you can
Oh,
call
I'm
for a
not done
motion.
with this.
Oh, you, okay, you.
I know.
If you,
I'm moving on from the age thing. I would like an explanation because I just don't understand this.
and you
We're
think we're gonna?
we're talking about paragraph 6. It starts with a
Wait, on the
school
revision
vehicle.
one or the current?
It's both the same.
Okay,
Starts, the paragraph starts,
a school vehicle.
a school vehicle.
Mhm.
The second line says, for the purpose of moving or propelling any person. And I'm not understanding
legally.
Yeah, you'll have to
what
ask
the
the attorneys.
propelling is.
It's-
Really?
Just means going forward, just means moving forward.
Yeah.
Oh, tell them forward.
It's just
Oh,
stupid
oh,
legalese. We run into
Like those
weird
people
things
on
like that.
roller skates that hang on to the back of a.
It's
Stuck with me
Yeah.
when I read through this and I'm
crazy
thinking,
legal.
really? Okay, all right. Then if there is no further discussion, we will put this out and see where it goes. Is there a motion for 5.4?
I move that we table this action item in until such time it needs to be reconsidered.
Okay, that's up to interpretation then when it.
Okay, I move that we table this action item.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Amy? Aye. Jerry?
Aye.
Melissa? Aye. And I also agree. Motion carries.
So can I ask a clarifying question? By tabling it, are you wanting it to come back? Or did you just not want to take any action on it, like, you know, just leave it as it is?
Both of those are
Tabling it
options.
usually means like setting it aside till the next meeting. So did you want it to be on the next agenda, like have more discussion on this?
Well, that
There's
was,
a lot to talk about.
what was that?
I think she's.
I'm sorry. I was just saying that it seems like there is a lot to talk about. It's kind of an interesting one.
Okay, well then I will put it on the next agenda. Thank you.
And moving on to 5.5, approval of the transitional kindergarten policy revisions. Okay.
Sherry, sorry.
Yeah.
Can we have that maybe like not as an action item, maybe just as a discussion item instead of an action item? Does
I
that
think
need
so.
stated
Or when the
or-
table doesn't have to be action again.
No, it could come up as a discussion item.
Yeah, I'll bring it as a discussion. Let me make a note of that. Okay. All right. So the next one, the TK policy revision. So this one, it's interesting because it looks like I put in the ed code, but didn't put in the existing policy. Is that correct? Did you guys not get the existing policy on this one? Did I just put in the
Well,
revision?
no, the one that was adopted November 10, 21.
So,
Yeah, so we did a revision in the ed code.
yeah, I just
And
gave the
then the
revision in the
ed
ed code. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I don't know why I didn't give the original. The original doesn't have the section that says, it starting in order to meet the requirements set forth by Ed Code 4800 G4, teachers must meet the minimum requirements. From that section down is what has been added in this revision. And so, the reason I included the Ed Code and I highlighted a specific section, and then this requires a little bit of explanation. So, you know, TK was added as a brand new grade several years ago. So TK is its own separate grade. School no longer is K through 12, now it's TK through 12. And when the state added this grade level several years ago, first, the grade level exists, but there was no like teacher requirement. They at some point put in teacher requirements, and they let us know years early that, you know, in several years out, your teachers who are teaching transitional kindergarten are going to have to meet certain requirements. So for the first few years that TK existed, and actually even still now, because that date keeps getting pushed back because of COVID, teachers who are teaching TK have the same teaching credential as someone teaching kindergarten, 5th grade, 6th grade, whatever. It's the one multiple subject teaching credential that you can teach TK through, technically it's K through 8th. That's who's been teaching TK. But at some point, teachers who teach transitional kindergarten are going to have to meet certain requirements. They can't just have a regular teaching credential. The state has plans to actually make a TK teaching credential, but they haven't yet. But until then, what they have said in Ed Code is you either have 24 units of early childhood education and child development. In addition to your teaching credential, you have to have 24 units of early childhood education, or you have to have had previous experience in preschool equivalent to 24 units of early childhood education, or that last option is the early childhood education credential, which doesn't exist yet, but the state's going to make. So that's what they put into law. You're going to have these requirements. Well, the part that's like, as determined and documented by the local education agency, what qualifies as the same experience as 24 units of early childhood education? That's up to each individual district or charter school to decide. And so the recommendation is to have a policy that clearly states what you at your school or your district believe qualifies as equivalent to 24 units of early childhood. So what I put in here are, basically I kind of spelled out what that would mean for us. And that's I added in this TK policy revision. So the 24 units of early childhood, that's real clear cut, right? We get a transcript, a college transcript, we count that up. So that one didn't really need a lot of nuance other than I added as documented by college transcripts. Like that's not in the Ed Code, but I'm saying that's going to be our process.
Right.
So the next one is the one that really needed the finessing. Professional experience in a classroom setting with preschool age children comparable to the 24 units of education described above as demonstrated by one of the following. Either 2 full-time years working in a preschool setting with preschool age children documented by a letter from the teacher verifying the dates and location of this work, or 1 year of full-time teaching of transitional kindergarten prior to July 1st, 2015, documented by a letter from the previous school stating the dates of TK employment. And so let me tell you why I put that one in there. You know how I said that when they first introduced TK, we had a lot of years where there was nothing in law that said what requirements, you didn't have to have any special requirements. And it wasn't until July 1st, 2015 that those requirements came forward. So we had people teaching TK prior to that, and that was okay. So those people are like grandfathered in. They were doing it before the requirement ever happened. So that's why I put that one in there too. So, and then the last one is the credential when that happens. I guess I'm asking you if you guys feel like those seem like reasonable equivalent to 24 units. And you may ask, well, why 1 year of teaching experience at TK where preschool was 2 years? And I think the rationale for that, my rationale for that is teaching TK, you are actually doing the job in the school setting with a teacher credential, teaching credential, where in preschool, if you were teaching 2 years in preschool, you did not have to have a teaching credential. And that wasn't in a K-12 setting. That could have been in a home daycare. It could have been, that varies. And so that's why I felt like 1 year of actually doing the job of TK, to me, seems like it could be justifiable as the equivalent of 24 units of early childhood education. But I don't know, this is also open to conversation here.
I have a question, and I know I'm jumping ahead of everybody else here. What happens if we find ourselves in a situation where you have to make some staffing changes, our enrollment's going up or whatever, and you go to Rebecca and you say, Rebecca, I need you to teach TK. She's been teaching for 300 years, and according to, you're looking good, huh? And all of a sudden, she's not qualified because of these particular guidelines.
But she's not qualified from the ed code regardless of these guidelines.
Okay,
Yeah. So our school would be out of compliance.
okay,
And it would be the same as a teacher teaching outside of their credential area. And that's what would happen for anybody that we have teach TK that doesn't meet the specifics in the ed code.
right.
So the only thing that really we have to decide is what do we consider equivalent to 24 units of early childhood education? Because Rebecca doesn't have that credential.
No,
She
no.
doesn't have
The
24
preschool.
units,
Right.
and she hasn't taught in a preschool setting the equivalent of 24 units. She would be out of compliance no matter what we put in this policy.
Okay.
Because she doesn't meet even the broad ed code requirement.
And I asked this question because in my other life, that did happen.
Absolutely.
And the specific teacher that was being placed in the
Yeah.
TK spent her entire summer taking classes.
Yeah, okay. So now, I mean, it would be the exact same thing now as if I had somebody with a high school math credential and I told them they had to teach elementary. We would be out of compliance. That's not allowed.
Right.
And so that's what the TK thing is now too, because it is considered a completely separate grade that has special requirements for teaching.
Okay.
So, but I still have that flexibility between K and 8.
Right.
But not for TK, but not because of this policy, but because of ed code.
Okay. And the independent study where any teacher can teach any grade, you won't be covered by that. It's its own little entity.
Yep. There's a whole FAQ on CD's website about independent study at TK, and they were sure to put that in there.
Being that I jumped in front of everybody, the floor is open once again.
I think for the ed code, I think this is reasonable.
And do you think 2 years of teaching preschool or one? Because we could
I
say
think my
1
only
year
thing is
of
the,
teaching preschool also.
I think the only thing is the verbiage.
Okay.
Is it 2 school years? Is it 2, because if they're at a school
Yeah.
and the school has preschool, technically that's only the month.
Good
Like, do
point.
you want 20, in my brain, 24 units equated to 24 months, not.
No, 24 units would be 2 like school years. Like you take 12 credits
Right.
1 year, it's like 6 fall semester, 6 spring, and then the other 12 the second year. So that's what that is. But in terms of the 2 full-time years working in a preschool, maybe that is where it should say 2 school
Yeah,
years.
that's what I'm
curious about. If it is like an in-home preschool daycare.
Right, they wouldn't be
whatever,
doing a school
No,
year.
yeah, so, but if somebody happened to be doing preschool at a school, are they not eligible because those weren't two
Full years, good point.
But
So-
for retirement, it would be a school year. Because people don't have to work 12 months to get a full year's worth of service credit.
Right, but she's talking about in a preschool.
I'm talking about preschool
So there,
specifically.
there wouldn't be any, like, if
Yeah.
somebody worked at a preschool that was, the preschool was only open 10 months a year.
Right.
They weren't open in the summer. Would they qualify? Would their?
Like ours, like a
qualify?
little preschool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so,
So what's your
yeah,
intention? Do you
Yeah.
want it to be the equivalent of school years?
right.
Or
Or not.
calendar.
Or
Yeah.
calendar years. I
Yeah.
think that, for me, that's just semantics, especially if you have somebody who just started the job and they wanna come work for us.
Yeah,
And say if I was reading this, I'd be like, oh, well, I haven't worked 2 full years yet.
right.
Like,
Mhm.
or maybe, yeah, I think there's,
Yeah. So I could say 2 like academic years or something.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Add some qualifier that ties it to the school.
And what do you think about the 2 years? Do you think 1 year of working in a preschool with 4-year-olds is
No.
equivalent
To teaching a class, absolutely not. No, I've worked with preschoolers for
Okay.
years. and
So
I don't
you think
teach
that,
it.
okay, so 2 years is better.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Just
So-
because of what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
It's different, it's not babysitting, it's,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it-
most preschools tend to be,
Yeah.
you hope they're getting education, but most of
Right.
the time it's fun.
Okay, I appreciate that. And what do you think? Did you agree with the rationale of the 1 year of actually teaching TK? Or do you think that should be 2 years?
I think it's hard because I think our TK and K are mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you took someone who did one of our classes, like, no problem 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be,
Yeah, because you'll find some small schools that's, I mean, combination classes are the only way they can survive.
Okay, so then I think maybe just editing that first empty bullet to be like two academic full-time
Yes.
years or something like that.
Yeah.
2 academic calendar full-time years, 2 full-time academic years. What do you guys think? Does academic make sense? School years, or should I say 20 months?
well, I think that's the other thing is this says working in a preschool.
Mhm.
What are you working in a preschool as?
Right.
I would say teaching in a preschool.
Okay.
Because you would need to be, like, we
The
had.
lead teacher.
We had
not-
aides, we had,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Okay, I like.
I mean,
that.
we had,
I definitely want to make that.
Teacher
change.
or
we had
instructor.
facilities people, we had secretaries. we had-
Yes, true.
So it has
Okay,
to be,
teaching in a preschool
Yeah.
setting, preschool, okay.
Yeah.
And then 2 full-time academic years, school years.
I think everybody knows what a school year is.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think.
in the
that-
context, school,
Yeah,
I like that. Those are
school
good.
years.
Those are good edits
Mhm.
for sure. Okay.
So does that mean, like, what if somebody worked 1 year for like 8 months and then went away to have a baby and then came back in the middle of the next year and then worked like a whole nother year after that, like, but they never got 2 full school years, you know what I mean? But they've had like 3 to 4 years of experience, but like off and on or something. So would that,
Yeah, it doesn't say consecutive, so if they had 3 to 4 years, even if there were breaks, that would be okay.
okay,
We have somebody in Wairika who worked full-time at a preschool at a local elementary school for an academic school year, and then was a part-time substitute for 2 years after that. So like, I don't know how
because full-time.
much part-time, how many
And as a
days.
sub, that implies like maybe 2 days a year or something.
yeah, you'd have to.
Or it could be 2-3 days a month, who knows, or it could be a few weeks at a time or something, I don't know, but.
Mhm.
Okay.
wanted to ask, is there like a,
Academic years hours. You know, like our employees work 7 hours a day for 180 days instructing students, so we could
Yeah,
convert and actually put hours.
yeah, but you could break it down specifically to that.
But I think that would have to be like on a case by case basis, because then I think we're getting too bogged down.
what if we put or the equivalent or something like that, right? Like 2 full-time academic years or the equivalent of thereof, something like that.
That is exactly what we're trying to get away from. That's what the ed code already says, the equivalent of 24 ECE units. And so we're trying to spell out what we think, the equivalent of 24 ECE units means. So I don't think I would want to put that in there, because then it's not spelling it out. And so we're trying to figure out, like, what are we gonna, like, what is our version of the equivalent of 24 units? That's what we're supposed to spell out, because as we're staffing, Linda and I need to be able to have something in somebody's personnel file that says they are qualified to teach this. And the 24 units, that's the easy one, because that's just a transfer.
Yeah.
But what is the equivalent of teaching, what's the equivalent of teaching preschool that equals 24 units of ECE education? That's what we're trying to kind of drill down into. So I definitely like putting teaching and not working. That for sure helps clear it up.
I'm glad she talked about that too. I was gonna ask about preschool because I'm just kind of educated on the matter. Is there like a state definition or like a specific that differentiates it from like a daycare? Because I know that I put my daughter in what was considered a preschool, and I would say was more of a daycare. But like, is there something that actually, are they like credentialed, or preschools, are they credentialed? Or because if anybody comes in and says, I don't know if this matters, I'm just throwing it out there, but like, oh well, I worked there at this preschool, and like, was it really a preschool, or is that what you just named it? Somebody named it that,
It's both, Melissa. It's both. So technically, as a business owner, they can LLC the business whatever they want. And they can call it a preschool, they can call it a daycare, they can call it stepping stones, they can call it whatever they want. As a business and an LLC. I believe as the state recognizes it as a preschool is solely based on the education of the lead educator there. So if your person there has a degree in early childhood education, then it can be considered a preschool. They can give a certificate that says you've finished preschool. And if you're running just a daycare or whatever, if you're calling it, Susie Q's preschool, you can still call it that as a business, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a preschool.
So should we use the language like a credible preschool, like, or do we need anything like that?
In a preschool setting, so I feel like that could be both. Like there are absolutely completely valid preschools out of a house that some people would consider a daycare. And then there's also quote unquote preschools at like a church or a mall or whatever that are essentially a daycare, and there is no teacher actually teaching quote unquote preschool. So I think that verbiage that says a preschool setting kind of covers both of those.
I have an idea for the translating units to work experience, so to speak. What if we just talk about number of hours? Like I did a little search, and it seems pretty common to equate 1 unit to say 30 to 40 hours of work. In which case 24 units would be about 720 to 960 hours of work experience.
That was what Linda had suggested, doing hours.
Yeah.
Well, Linda will let people can do math.
And it could kind of say both, right? Like such hours or 2 full academic years. Or which is it?
Talking about the first bullet that says at least 24 units. And then the next line, documented by a college transcript. That says college units transcript, not hours.
I think he was talking about the second bullet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
So-
much work experience?
The one
Yeah.
that's like the 2 full-time years in a preschool
Okay.
setting, instead of doing 2 full-time years, he was saying like 1 unit in college is equivalent to 30 hours. So if you did 24 times 30, you could put those hours
And
there.
then that could be, in parentheses, hourly equivalent equals.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I have to say then, so if you do that math, let's say 7 hours a day for 5 days a week in the course of 36 weeks, which is like a normal school year, that's over 1,200 hours. So I could see someone making the argument that even just 1 year of full-time work could equal 24 units.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Are you taking those?
I'm taking it all in. I mean, that's a very good point.
Because it's.
Yeah,
it's
720
like
hours.
to bringing this back.
Yeah, I kind of like that, so you looked up and a typical college unit is 30 hours, is that what you said?
No, I just looked up, what's a typical way to translate academic credits to hours of work experience. And the response was commonly 30.
Class that's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Right.
those are an hour, right, so it's
Yeah.
3 hours a week.
So,
But
yeah,
that'd be like a 3 unit class, probably 3 or 4, 3 probably.
I'd say.
so I think I seem to recall
Yeah,
seeing
and then
something
there's
like
4
that.
weeks, 6 weeks, 24 hours and unit.
How many weeks, would you say?
Most classes are what? 12 weeks?
18.
I don't think they're 18, are they?
Depends on what
Well,
school you go to.
no, I'm
That's
thinking of
that's
hours.
a TK-12, but not a college, they're less,
Yeah.
yeah,
They're like 12.
It's in a,
in a semester at a college, yeah.
I like the
Homework,
idea of
there's a lot of at-home hours
Yeah.
involved in.
But still, I think that however you calculate it, 1 full-time year of working at a preschool or daycare
Kind of agree with you.
could easily, equal 24 units. Just of
Even
experience.
though it takes you 2 years to get 24 units,
Right.
but that's not 2 solid years, because there's summer and there's
Right,
school breaks
right.
and stuff, yeah.
But I do like with a preschool, them having 2 years versus 1 year hands-on as a teacher. Personally, I like that because it's like they had to stick with it and they probably learned a lot and that's obviously just very like a folk perspective, but like I feel
Yeah.
like if preschool teacher is going to now be the TK teacher, probably better if they had more experience than.
Yeah, okay, well, can we just stick with 2 full-time school years teaching in a preschool setting?
Yeah, I think that's good. But I did have one other question, just really fast. Is it stated anywhere else that in addition, like you mentioned it when you were reading this, in addition to teaching credentials? Or would that just be, so like, because is this piggybacking on something else like, and also TK teachers have to also go by this policy, or is this like alone and needs to say in addition to teaching credentials, transitional teachers, kindergarten teachers must have such and such. You know what I mean?
That is a really, really good question. I think we should have that in there. And I'm looking back at the ed code, because you know how it says, must meet the requirements set forth by ed code 48,000 G4. So I was looking to see if that ed code said that, and it might, but not in that section. So I do think we should say that, because you're right. Otherwise, what we have here does not say they also have to have teaching credential.
Right.
Good catch. So it should just be transitional kindergarten teachers must have a valid California teaching credential and one of the following.
Yes. That would be good.
Thank you.
But otherwise, I like it.
Okay. All those notes.
Any other comments, questions? All right, hearing none, is there a motion for 5.5?
I'll move to approve the transitional kindergarten policy revisions with the additional edits discussed.
And a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Jerry?
I'd like to see it all in print before. That's what I would have said. I mean, I almost made the motion to that effect. Okay.
Melissa?
Aye.
And I also agree. Motion carries. Moving on to 6.1, discussion of summary of board member requirements for the Northern United Board Handbook.
Okay, so you guys remember we talked about these last month and kind of wrote down the things that we thought should be included. You gave me feedback on things, we kind of fine-tuned it. And so I wrote it all up just so you could see like a clean copy of what all was in there. Before I actually officially put it in the handbook. Thoughts?
I have a question, I guess.
Okay.
Last month when we were going over this, there was some discussion about the Brown Act training. And I can't remember whether it was you that brought this up or Jerry, that perhaps annually is not warranted because they're pretty much the same, maybe a refresher or whatever. But are we asking that it be annually?
Well, I wouldn't ask to be annually because I feel like the Brown Act training and conflict of interest. I mean, if we did a new one of those every couple of years, that seems sufficient to me. But HCOE requests that it be done every year.
And there are
authorizers.
Okay.
So that's why it's in there. So every year we have to submit stuff to them as part of their authorizing. And so that was actually something that Linda just submitted. The October 31st, we had to give them a bunch of stuff. And that was one of the things, like the dates that people last did. Now, I would be happy to ask them, like, do you feel like this is like, are you just asking for the dates? They on their column, it's not just they're asking what date it is an annual thing. They have annually, but I don't know that they fully thought that out because that is not a requirement of, if you are a board member in a district, that is not a requirement. You know, it's required to do it. It's great information.
Yeah.
But it's like, do we really want to require volunteers to do something?
Do they really understand that it's pretty much repetitive?
I know.
And the only reason it would be somewhat different is because of the presenter.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
the one that we did via Zoom, the discussions and things that came out were much different than what you and I and Bianca sat in on.
And see, and I liked the
HCOE.
one at HCOE more than I did the one in Sacramento.
Oh, yeah, that was,
Yeah.
but that's because we were among our peers and we were all patting ourselves on
Oh,
the back.
well, and rightfully so, Jerry.
We were so far ahead.
But I'm happy to ask HCOE if they feel like that's something that they
Gosh.
want done annually, because to me, like, you know how the sexual harassment thing is every 2 years.
Right.
To me, it seems like Brown Act is sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wouldn't mind saying, like, in the parentheses behind that, something like within the first year of your first term or
Uh-huh.
something like
Something.
that.
Mhm.
You know, like doing it pretty soon, you know, but then after that, it's kind of like
Mhm.
every other year would be way more than sufficient.
Mhm. Yeah, biannually. Yeah, I was wondering, but then you mentioned the sexual harassment being biannually. I was thinking maybe they just want to make sure that everyone has taken it because it's such a big deal. So each year, just in case you got a new member, they want to get that, you know, so they
Right.
just.
Good point. Yeah, I'll ask them. I'll
Yeah.
ask them.
I think biannually is so much better. Like I don't mind taking it every other year, and every year is fine, but there's so many. I mean, it's not a lot, but you know, on top of all the other life things.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, I'll ask her about that. So we don't have to, this is not an action item
No.
or anything. We don't have to do, I'll find out and just bring it back to you and let you know what they say.
Perfect.
That it's, as a, hopefully, a final conclusion to what was started back in March of updates to the handbook and
Mhm.
revisions and.
Careful, Jerry, because we could decide, like, maybe we should put that mileage thing in the handbook
Yeah, we
rather
were
than
just
this
talking about the
random
mileage.
resolution.
Well, no, it should be, I guess I misunderstood that that was something that should be in the handbook.
Mhm.
Physically,
Mhm.
it's also part of the onboarding process.
Mhm.
And it should be there
Mhm.
because then that's the fallback reference.
So do you think I should just add the resolution into there? Okay, rather than us writing something to put in there. Okay, I'll do that.
I mean, that's my recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, that's
on
makes
that.
sense.
But, finally, we've, after how many years? Rosemary?
Oh, it just seems like one.
Liar.
And sometimes you have to go through the process in these things to realize, something new comes up and you go, whoa, well,
Yeah.
that's never come up before.
Yeah,
right.
So how are we going to?
Yeah.
And so, experience has, with that hindsight, has allowed us to make these revisions and put these things into place so that from now moving forward, because, we're gonna have to fill a vacant seat and, we've got things covered, hopefully, that, we didn't before. And I think we're going to be better for that. And, all I can say is, I'm truly sorry, Melissa and Amy, that we didn't have these things together to be able to present them to you when you were sworn in.
Mhm. But
I
those
feel
come-
like it gives us an opportunity to be a part of it, and I'm kind of grateful. So thank you for leaving space for us to contribute.
Yeah, we get to learn along the way. I learn better doing things anyway.
And I am thankful, truly thankful that we got the making motion thing cleared up after all those years of being the chairperson. that's just.
And moving on to reports, we have 7.1, the enrollment and attendance report that's in our packet. Any questions or comments?
What's going on in Siskiyou to cause a drop in attendance? Big, huge round of colds, the flu.
And the enrollment's the same.
Yeah, usually for us, attendance doesn't have anything to do with colds and flu because it's work completed. It's not coming to any facility or anything. So it's for whatever reason, a large number of students not completing their work. And so
Yeah.
we've definitely been having missed assignment meetings. You know, the community school coordinator has been reaching out to families. It's been, in fact, Kirk and I were speaking yesterday. We've actually been talking the last couple days about this. We've had, I'm not sure now how many referrals we've made for mental health counseling over there. So, you know, things like that.
Well, we're then thankful for having the resources to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's a domino effect.
Yeah.
And moving on to 7.2, the financial report for NU Humboldt and NU Siskiyou.
Yeah, Kelly's not here, so hopefully no questions.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I would answer questions too.
Any questions or comments for Sherry? All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to 7.3, which is the Northern United Humboldt school report. Rebecca, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, I think it's all there. Was a busy month.
It was a busy month, and I enjoy the color pictures that Kirk has always done, and you are now copying his masterpiece. Thank you for that.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, yeah. And 7.4 is the Siskiyou school report. Kirk, do you have anything you want to add?
No, not really. It was a busy month too.
Looks good as always. Any questions or comments? All right, we will move on to 7.5, Director's Report.
All righty. Well, I don't have a whole lot tonight. I did email out to you guys, I think maybe yesterday, an application we received for a board member, which Kirk, is Brianna there?
No, she did not show up.
Okay, so originally I had told her that the meeting on that side was going to be in Wairika tonight, and we kind of had to have a last minute change. And I notified her, but my thought is maybe she wasn't able to make that change. I haven't checked to see if she responded on my phone. But she is somebody who had been a board member before, and she moved out of state and has returned and is really excited about the idea of being on the board again. And so I had her complete the application, and you guys will appreciate this. I kind of thought, do we really need her to fill out the application? Because she left as a board member in good standing. We know her experience. She had done it before, but so I was kind of like, I don't know. But so when I was talking to her, I said, well, we have people fill out an application. She said, send it to me. I will fill it out. And I was like, okay. So I emailed that to you, but because it happened after this agenda was already posted, I knew that we couldn't really take any action or anything tonight. We couldn't do any interviews or anything. So really what I wanted to ask you is, knowing that December, next month's meeting, there's a few things on there that we're putting on there that from tonight's meeting. Plus, it's the organization meeting, so it's the one where we're gonna decide our day and time that we meet for next year, plus officers, so be thinking about that. Also, it is, first interim for both Humboldt and Siskiyou, so the December board meeting is kind of a bigger one, yeah. So with that said, do we want to do an interview? Like, what would we like to do for the process for this one? Do we want to have a special board meeting just for that? Do we want to have it with the December? Do you feel like it's not necessary to do an interview? Maybe for the board members who do not know her, we still should do an interview. I don't know, I'm just putting that out there to you. Jared?
When I saw the email, I was thrilled. And I responded to you in kind. And my first knee-jerk reaction was, how soon can we bring her on? But then after that initial wave wore off, and even sitting here now and hearing what you're saying rhetorically, it's to go through the interview process and to do all of that benefits Melissa and Amy. Rosemary and I know her, and as you know, she was one of the original board members. And so the connotation of that is we all met together the very first time and then several times thereafter. So we've had personal interaction that that they don't have. And but I'll still stick with how soon can we get this done? And my recommend, my thought would be to see if we can have a special board meeting to go through the process and bring her on board. Who knows? Look, this is a rescheduled board meeting now, and that possibility has always existed. It's lessened because of a full board. And then with that in mind, the other thing I was going to bring up tonight was I want to revisit the interview questions, based on the experience over the last 2 years. I'm not certain that we're asking the right questions, or there are some missing. And that's just based on, some of the things that we've wrestled with since that time.
Well, if we want a special board meeting before the December board meeting, that doesn't give us a lot of time.
And it's difficult because of Thanksgiving.
We have Thanksgiving next week, and then we have the last week of November, and then we have the first week of December, and then that second week is our regular board meeting. So that gives us a 2-week window, the week of November 27th and the week of December 4th. So if we wanted to have a special board meeting, it would have to fall in one of those weeks.
Could we just do 2 meetings back to back, a special board meeting at 3 and the regular board meeting?
Could, but if we were gonna do a long thing, it may as well just be in the regular meeting. I think the only
start
purpose.
earlier so that it doesn't run necessarily really long at the
I think it would be just as long as if we started earlier, we wouldn't end as late. It would be the same amount of overall time, right?
Yeah, But
Um,
still not ending late, that would be key. Yeah.
And with Jerry's idea of revisiting the questions and whatnot,
Right, if we wanted to do that
Can-
before this interview.
can we just, modify what we do? Because it is Brianna and she has history with us, rather than go through the round robin of all the
We
questions.
don't even have to interview. I mean, that's
That's
not
true.
something that, like, you guys are essentially appointing.
Right.
And so
That also
really,
costs-
you know, we have set up this procedure for interviewing, so that it gives you guys an opportunity to ask the questions you want and get to know the person before choosing to appoint. And you guys already know that,
We
but
do, but
Melissa and Amy
do
don't,
not.
right? So maybe
And-
they're the ones we should ask if they want to interview.
I agree.
You know, out of courtesy, that's what I said, that you gotta go through the process for Melissa and Amy.
Well, if, which what I hear you saying is you want to adjust some of the questions anyways. So in the future, it won't be the exact same process as whatever, if we did a traditional interview with this person. And the interviews that Melissa and I did, if the future is gonna be different, I have no problem based on your recommendations. Doing like you said, coming in an hour early and like a meet and greet for like an hour where we could ask questions if we wanted to. I mean, I don't, especially the redundancy of if Melissa and I are the only two in the room who don't know the answers to the questions and everybody else has already heard the answers to the questions or could answer them themselves, I feel like that could be redundant. And then also, if this person is experienced, I would want their input on the future interview questions. Like, I don't wanna have a second conversation about interview questions and have left that.
Once we have a full
her
board.
out.
Yeah, along that same point, I like the idea of getting her in before the organizational meeting. Cause if we're gonna pick the calendar, like what days we're gonna meet, don't we wanna ask her too, if she's gonna be on the
Right.
board, you know?
What do you think, Melissa?
One question was, and maybe it's not going to be necessary, but I just want to know, is it possible, like, are we able to have interview and onboard in the same meeting, or does that have to be two different meetings?
No, we can do it in the same meeting, absolutely, as long as I agendize it that. So like I would put an agenda item, the interview, and then later on, you know, below that, I would put in there like appointing board member and new board member or something, and then if you guys didn't want her, we didn't have to act on that agenda item, the appointment part, you know, and then we could swear her in right then.
And then the other thing is, what was I gonna say? So I think that where do we find the interview process information? Because I know I think I have, because it was sent before with Amy, you know, and the other gentleman. I have the questions on my computer, but like, where do we find that, and how do we know? Because I'll have to revisit if we were to interview at any point in the future. A refresher would be good. So I feel like if we just kind of had a procedure and we all knew how that went, and maybe we could go over the questions just in our, like, my suggestion is if you sent her the interview and she gave us like an introduction of herself, kind of answering the questions without us having to, you know, all sit and ask them to her, that would allow her to have feedback on what our questions are and how they felt to her. It would give us the opportunity to look at all the questions ourselves so that we could, in a future meeting, change them or accept them, whatever, modify them. And then we could just vote, you know, if, or whatever the process is, and then swear her on. And then my other thing to that is, how long did we ever come up with how long this onboarding would take? Because it almost seemed like we were thinking it was pretty long process with all of the items we're gonna go over. Can we get it done in an hour? Is it a 2 to 3 hour thing? What is this looking?
Okay, so I think I maybe misunderstood when you said, could we interview her and onboard her at the same time? Cause you're right, I was thinking what you meant is could we interview her and then appoint her and swear her in? But you were actually talking about the whole onboarding thing where we're gonna give her a history of the school and like, you know, go
And some
through
of that would be a
handbook.
condensed version because
Yeah,
she was one of the
Yeah.
founding folks, so to
right.
speak.
Did we say that that had to happen at like the first meeting in our onboarding thing? I could look it up.
I think it might have even said when appointed. I think we might have
Okay.
said when she's appointed, we would onboard.
Her come back, we would not have to go through all of the steps. The overview of the schools or the district, she knows all about that.
But we've done so much work on it, it feels like to me that we want to actually put it into motion so that we know if it's way too lengthy or if it's like, does that seem necessary? And maybe even get that feedback from her as someone who already knows, like, well, this part seems like important and this doesn't, you know, it might be good feedback from someone who hasn't built it like we have.
Could we do like a combination of those things? So like send her the questions to like fill out in advance, and then we all could get those answers, and then we could ask clarifying questions if need be. And again, we're treating this as a specific different situation.
Kind of a
than she's
one-off.
already been, yeah. But then at the same time, send her the revised handbook and stuff that we've already done, maybe highlighting the changes. I don't know if that's possible, or just saying, hey,
You added an awful
Well, it'd be
lot.
hard to-
well, and then
I know that we had the handbook when she was with us.
I think we were starting it.
I think personally, when I was coming on, I would have loved to have had the handbook before I came on.
Yeah.
So that I could actually know what you were talking about, because I didn't know anything about what you were talking about at all, and to absorb all of that. It takes me a long time to read, and it takes me a long time to learn things. And so for me, having that, I would still love the going over of it, like, these are the things you need to pay attention to, these are things that, you know, do you have any questions about this section, this section, this section? But like, personally, my brain would like to read that information before I
Sure.
discuss it.
Yeah. So here's what we say in the onboarding protocol. At the first NUCS board meeting after being sworn in, the new board member will be onboarded. The onboarding process will be led by the board chairperson or designee and consist of, and then there's all the things, an introduction including names and titles of all the directors and officers, a review of the handbook, including all protocols, calendar of meeting dates, contact list for all the board members, location of board policies, an explanation of board and corporate officer roles, mileage reimbursement procedure, and NUCS background. Receiving a Robert's Rules of Order book, a photo being taken for the NUCS school badge, an introduction to their new NUCS email address, completion of the Form 700 conflict of interest form, and then the school director will create a NUCS school badge and a nameplate for the new board member. So we're supposed to do all of that stuff at the first meeting after being sworn in. But I absolutely could give her the handbook ahead of time.
So that means that will occur in January.
That's what I was thinking.
And so,
Unless we had a special board meeting before the December one.
the way it's sounding, and you know, in a perfect world, in doing all the research and the background for all the discussions we had month in and month out, one of the recommendations is that all the candidates for a vacancy get all that information in advance. Not, I mean, in course, you have to go over it once. You know,
Sure,
they're-
but at least they
But
read
they
it
knew,
first.
but they are knowing what they're getting themselves into.
Yes.
Okay, I have to
Yeah.
spend time online going through these courses and that. That's in a perfect world, and, you know, we haven't talked about that. And so we're doing, you know, we've come up with what they need to be told, for their role. So, I don't think all the interview questions, personally, I don't think all the interview questions that we have right now are necessary to send to Brianna. I think most importantly, she needs to tell everyone her story
Yeah.
and leave it at that. And we can all ask her questions. Because it gets back to, and you alluded to it, we can do whatever we want, you know, however we want. You know, we're not bound by particular really process, because it's definitely not in the bylaws. It's just that we have the power to appoint and remove and blah, blah, blah. And so taking from what Linda has suggested, you know, maybe we do start, you know, have it agendized. We start a little early, and she comes in, and you know, it's however you want to characterize it on the agenda. You know, the interview, and it can be rather informal, and have her tell her story and ask questions, and then we take a vote, and I'm assuming she'll be approved and get seated, and then
In January, do the onboarding.
yeah, and then move on with the organization. She can have input about the day and time.
So I guess the only thing to decide then is, should we send her the interview questions? I'll definitely send her the handbook, the board handbook in advance. But should I send her interview questions to fill out? I mean, I feel like this is an Amy and Melissa call, because so I just pulled up the questions and I'm looking at them. They, you know, I think they would help you know where she's coming from a little bit or whatever. And if I got those in advance and gave them to you, then you would know what follow-up questions you wanted to ask. You know, I would include her answers in the packet. I could anyway. Normally, we haven't included the interview questions in the board packet so people didn't know what they were in advance. So those are things I normally would send you, you know, in advance. So if I
wouldn't
put them in the packet, I could just send them to you, her response.
I don't think we need her response. Let her give her response
Here.
in open session.
You don't think it would help expedite it though? If you guys had seen her answers in advance, maybe there wouldn't be any follow-up questions. I don't know. I'm just thinking of like trying to make it faster, you know,
What Jerry had said is, don't do the questions in the formal interview.
Just
Let her share her story, and then we could ask questions on that.
So have her write like, here's the first question in the interview. Please tell us about yourself and what makes you the best candidate to serve on the Northern United Charter Schools Board of Directors, and why we should select you to serve and fill our current vacancy. Like, should we just ask her to write on that, maybe?
And just an overview of that one question.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
We could.
How do you
My
feel?
personal, what
Yeah,
I
go
would really like is if she just had the opportunity to look at it and then just tell us whatever she felt, like maybe with that as a guideline, like, hey, maybe you might consider, you know, including some of these points in your presentation or whatever. And then that way we just get to know about it, but we all get to just kind of see, like, what are we asking? Like, what do we want to know? Just for future, like, personally, I don't mind. I don't really need her to answer all the questions on there. I do remember that it felt pretty lengthy, and like, I kind of trust your guys's judgment of her, and I just like to meet her more myself. But I think that if we all at least had the opportunity to look at the questions, that will be beneficial for us moving forward.
Well, and I would just like to see them because I've never seen them. I've been asked them, but I've never like seen them all.
Well, you know, she, uh, she hasn't seen the
ever seen them
questions,
either, yeah.
because we developed all that after.
Yeah, she would.
And we developed it based upon her leaving.
Yeah, I don't
And
know if that's
Jennifer
her or
leaving.
Jennifer, but yeah, Melissa, I was gonna answer, you said where could we find like the interview questions, the process and stuff. I don't, there no any place that you would have access to. What the process has been is before we have needed to interview, I've emailed them to every board member. And because like I said, we didn't ever put them in the packet on purpose. So like I emailed you kind of guidelines of what to think about or something when selecting a board member, along with interview questions and the people's like their application, their completed application. So those went out to all the board members just, in an email ahead of time.
And then, there was mention that there'd be an introduction. And,
That's right.
and, the chairperson.
Yeah, the
would-
chairperson does an
would,
introduction.
do an introduction and welcome them, and
And when we've wanted to edit the questions before, because we have fairly recently edited the questions, because I see there's one in there that's, what does chain of command mean to you? That was an after, aftermarket edition. When we've wanted to edit them, I think what we did is like how we often do, I shared it out with you guys and you guys all individually just email me your thoughts on that or something, because so that we were avoiding a serial meeting. That's kind of how we edited questions. I heard.
so sure, you can email her the questions that we currently have.
Just as things, okay, I need one more clarification though, because at first I was thinking you guys were saying that we wanted her to kind of write up her story so that you would have it in advance. But then I kind of thought maybe Melissa was saying she would say her story. So do you want her to give us something ahead of time? Or do
That's
you
up
want
to
her to just talk
Amy
in our early meeting?
If you feel like it will take a lot of time, then maybe we could get it ahead of time, but I feel like I just would like to meet her. So I kind of like if she just lets us know about herself and maybe her background and whatever points she finds important to tell us. And then if we had any questions, we could ask. But like, I think like Amy was saying, that way we could think of questions ahead of time and ask her if we have any. I understand that too. So I'm okay with either way.
Yeah, I don't have a preference. I'm fine with her just coming and saying, hi, this is me, this is my story, who I am and what I want to. Obviously, she's doing this again, so I mean, yeah, I think I'm okay with that too. I also don't want to ask,
People to do a bunch of work.
right, out of redundancy, also, like.
Okay.
This might not be this, but I can very comfortably say she was a dedicated, engaged member. Only just this past week, I mean, I came across 2 packets of information that she sent out to all of us. And she wanted to, because we're all brand new, board wise and policies and procedures. And she's invested her own time to search this out and send us this information.
And she went out into the community to represent and to find information to bring back to us.
And so she,
So I'll ask her to just come to the December meeting. I'll send her the questions ahead of time, tell her she doesn't have to fill those out, but this is just a guideline for things that she could tell us when she comes, because we are going to ask her to kind of just come and introduce herself, kind of tell us her story, and that the board may have some follow-up questions. And if they're satisfied, they will vote in the meeting to appoint her. So that's what I'm going to tell you. Good? Okay. Okay, and then I'm still on the director's report. I just included in there something from SCOE, just the unaudited actuals review. And I did include in there the resolution. I wasn't crazy. It was at the end in my director's report.
You're not crazy.
I'm
Good
crazy.
job, Sherry.
Okay, so that was in there. Yeah,
There it is, yeah.
I just didn't put it in the other place for some reason. I put it in with my director's report. Okay, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Good talk there. Now, 7.6 is the board report. Amy, do you have anything?
I do want to say I never liked Jerry so much as suggesting we do all the onboarding in January.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do we shove all this into
Yeah.
like before the holidays? My fix-it brain is like, okay, when do we do it? When do we do it? So I appreciate that greatly. And I had so much fun at the fall carnival here at the Cut and Learning Center. My kids had a blast, and Mr. Williamson did a cakewalk with a huge giant pile of books and candy. And I swear my kids came home with so many books.
Wow.
I don't know that I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
It was amazing. We have a great library now at our house. But yeah, it was super fun.
Thank you. Jerry?
No, other than, I was gonna say I was sorry that before this got rescheduled, I was prepared to say, I'm sorry, I had to miss the board meeting, but it was a very important family matter. So not every day does the grandson graduate from Marine Corps boot camp.
We're all proud of you.
Yeah.
Melissa?
Well, I'm healthy again, so I'm happy about that. I'm sorry, you guys, that we had to reschedule. I really did want to just make it work out. And then I was like, I'm not better. I'm not getting better. So thank you for, just everybody's patience, and hopefully everybody felt okay about that. But yeah, so that's all.
Okay, and I just have one comment. I met with our new auditor a week or so ago. No,
Oh, Marlon. Okay, you had
Marlon.
Okay.
Yes.
You had the big guns.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay, well, the big guns were had made the comment that they, and I guess she came with a team or whatever, that they were very impressed by our school, what how everything was laid out. You guys were very prepared, and they really appreciated that. Found things to be nice and tidy.
They also interviewed a teacher. Which I thought was interesting.
I didn't know how to interview
Yeah.
different staff members, I think. They've always just given a list and documents they wanted.
And so with that being said, we'll move on to 8.1, possible agenda items.
Yeah, a whole lot. The organization meeting, so the calendar and the officers, and then bringing back as a discussion, the driver criteria policy. Bringing back that whole requirements by board members summary after I talked to HCA
Right.
about the Brown Act thing, and that might not actually be an agenda thing. I might just report that to you.
Yeah.
Let's see what else, and then of course the interview, and then the first interims for both schools will probably, hopefully, be in there too. Jerry?
Instructional.
I had been thinking, it was before the Brianna thing, that we should have a discussion to brainstorm on, is it possible, I mean, there are no incentives to serve on the board
No,
per
there's
se.
not. Mm-mm.
And, you know, is there any, I just felt like we could have a brainstorming session. If nothing comes out of it, so be it. But we've dodged the bullet
Mhm,
right now.
mhm.
But and just because now we're gonna go back to a full board, honestly, I think we'd be remiss in not thinking about, you know, looking ahead and trying to be proactive instead of always being reactive. Is there anything that we can do to encourage people to serve? And I'm not talking monetarily. We can reimburse for mileage if they live a distance, but there's got to be a better way. I mean, I think I take this probably more personally than, you know, than anyone else, having been here on the inception and had to deal with a revolving door of seats. You know, it's catch as catch can, and is there a better way? So I was just thinking, of course, next month is not a good time to do that because we're already packed. But maybe in January we could have just a discussion, and then ideally it's suited for when we all get together, and not this way all together,
No.
but physically, you know, together, to see if we can come up with something, because we're out of the norm. We're out of the realm of the regular traditional process where, you know, people can file and you know, that whole structure. This is
Should we try to?
a friend of a friend, you know, somebody encourages them, and you know, and that, and
Did you say we're doing calendaring next meeting? Can part of that be, my brain's not working right now. Scheduling that. So for me, life in advance is necessary. So scheduling that trip or get together or whatever, like
At that
way
meeting.
far in advance of that meeting. Cause I can plan like 4 or 6 months out for that, but I can't plan like 2 months out, like just because of life and children.
Yeah.
Things.
I think that's a really good idea.
that is,
Yeah.
Because
Do that
typically
agenda
we
already.
meet twice a year, once over there, usually in February, I believe, and then they would come over here in the fall. Or vice versa.
or vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
one that should be a board requirement too, that we were just talking about all those board requirements. You know, that might be one, be willing to travel to neighboring, you know, the other county.
Oh, true.
Well, I think that's the other thing that I thought of, which I'm just crazy sometimes, like on a nice day in the spring, I would love to spontaneously go over there and for our board meeting, and I'll Zoom with them and you would like, but that's not what I'm talking about specifically, like planned, like every once in a while I'll get a wild hair and wanna go on a road trip.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, speaking of next month, I actually will be over in Siskiyou, so I'll be with Brianna. And it's because that same day as our December board meeting is SCOE's board meeting, and we have a presentation that we have to do. So I'll be there for their board meeting, and then we have our board meeting. Theirs is at noon, so I'll be there with Brianna.
Those times that we were all together, were productive times.
Extremely productive.
Yes.
And a little bit out, I was gonna ask, Sherry, is there a way that we could have a little more communication on like possible dates that would be good to attend school events. Like if we were to get little, like, not monthly, nothing like absolute, but like suggestions every once in a while, like, hey, here's some upcoming events that would be good for board members to attend. Like, because I'd love to, just randomly, oh, next month, me and the fam could go down there,
Do you guys get the newsletters?
So
You're not getting the monthly newsletters, not the staff one or the one for parents. You must
I
get
get the parents one.
Yeah,
Parents
you
one,
get
but
the parent
it's-
one, Melissa, right?
I do, but to be honest, as a parent doing so many things, and I'm not that connected to the school. I'm completely homeschooled. My kids
Right.
don't attend. So I skim for really important things just in my, okay, what do we have to do? What is required? So it's kind of like separate to me, and that's a me problem. I need to make more, well, what events could I be attending as a board member? But it's always secondary in my mind. So it's
Well,
like,
and probably the difference is you're getting those to your personal email, not your board email.
I'm getting text messages, it's like overwhelming kind of.
Whereas
Whereas if,
because I think it's really important
Yeah.
that we as board members are visible at as many things as we possibly can. And I know that Jenna over at the Eureka Learning Center, she's very good at sending Sunday nights little blurb for the coming week.
And just so you know, I've asked everybody again recently, like this school year, to send those,
And
to
even
you
a
guys.
monthly
I
calendar.
don't get a lot.
Yeah, a monthly
I
calendar
get
is
the
good.
newsletters, but I
but,
don't always get the individual like flyers that a center is sending. Like I don't get those ones that Jenna sends you.
Yeah.
I don't see those.
And Rebecca is really good at sending out the parent squares
Mhm.
messages.
Mhm.
That's really very helpful as well. But like a monthly calendar to be able to see at a glance.
Mhm.
yeah, that would be really
I love Parent Square, it's great, but not everyone uses it, and honestly, when I'm looking at it, it's literally as a parent, I'm like, what do I have to do with my kids?
Yeah.
So that might be a brain shift in my brain too, but like I totally skimmed over the fundraiser for ELC because it was ELC.
Uh-huh.
And all I saw on the top was like ELC, blah, blah, I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Right.
your parent cap.
But you
Yeah.
could have had lasagna waiting
Yeah.
for you right now.
I know.
Don't sit up
I
and
know,
skip
my
it.
husband's like, you good? Dinner time?
Yeah.
She keeps advertising.
I know.
She's got lasagna in her
You guys,
office.
did you say we wanted to start the December board meeting early? Because we haven't set a time yet for that.
We did, I thought.
Okay, so what time,
A little over 3.
does 3 work for everybody? If we're having Brianna come in? And I don't know for sure yet that works for her. I'm gonna have to talk with her.
Right.
3 works for me.
And if not, maybe we just
Noon.
have to have her
Earlier
come, and have that special meeting.
Okay. Melissa, does 3, starting at 3 next month work for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and if we don't even need that much time, if we just need a half an hour, whatever is fine with me.
We don't really need to reserve an hour for that.
I had no
We
idea.
should not.
Yeah,
We
but,
shouldn't.
but the earlier we come, the sooner we leave.
True.
So, and if we
We
have
might
all that stuff,
It's just that the staff has to Zoom from all of their centers and
Oh,
kids
yeah.
are gonna still be there.
Maybe it should.
Maybe
be
say 3:30.
okay.
And this is just gonna be a regular board meeting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just start early.
Oops. And moving on to 8.2, speaking about our board meeting, our next board meeting, that will be December the 13th. And I will want to thank everyone for coming this evening, and I'll adjourn the meeting at 6:34.
Melissa, is it, you guys are in Mount Shasta this time, right? So Wairika, I need to tell Brianna Wairika, right?
Yeah, we're pretty flexible, to be honest. Like, if it's easier for her to be here, that's okay with me. So most of the time, most weeks, Kirk and I just both kind of connect and like where should we have it, you know? And so,
Okay.
since
Well,
we are
I'm
starting
I'm gonna
earlier.
tell her,
Because I wanted
yeah, I'll tell her the Wairika one. And if that's a problem, she'll, I'll say, let me know if that's preferable.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Mhm.
But Kelly and I can sit on this side of you and be a little bit further away from that.
I think we got a lot done in that amount of time. It felt like a long meeting, but it was
Yeah.
still 1.5 hours, so we did pretty good.
Well, that's how these things work out. That's
I need to go.
sometimes making progress is messy.
There you go.
Gotta go.
You
Thank
take
you,
care,
everybody.
stay healthy.
Hey, so before Amy leaves, get her signature on the
Left. Oh, she's here, she's back.
So,
Oh.
you know,
Thank you for
one of the
reminding
things
me.
that will be
the September and October
to
minutes.
have
Okay, thank you for the reminder.
Rihanna's perspective on
I-
some of the things that we've done. And because